Hey everybody, it's GoblinoX and welcome back to some more Magic Arena. Today we have another draft of a double feature, the format that mixes Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow together with one rare from each set per pack. And as you can see, our pick one pack one today is going to be pretty difficult because we've got two excellent rares. Dream Shacklegeist, a 3-mana 3/1 flyer that taps down a creature or keeps it tapped down at the beginning of your combat, and Primal Adversary, a 3-mana 4/3 trample that you can kick later on for an additional 2 mana every time, and for every time you kick it, you get to make one of your lands become a 3/3 wolf permanently. So I'm going to take Primal Adversary here. This just seems like the bombier card to me. Playing it on turn 3 even is just absurd, a 3-mana 4/3 trample, and however late you draw it, you just dump all your mana into it and have an absolutely massive board state. I think Primal Adversary is a bit better than Dream Shacklegeist, and it's also a green card, and I have drafted a ton of blue so far, and not so much green in this format. And we can follow it up with Old Rutstein, a pretty fun green-black self-mill rare. 3 mana for a 1/4. When they enter the battlefield or at the beginning of your upkeep, mill a card. If you mill a land, get a treasure token. If you mill a creature, get an insect token. And if a non-creature, non-land card is milled, get a blood token. So it gives you a token based on what you mill. Could be mana ramp, could be card filtering, could be little 1/1 creatures. So pretty good deal off a 3 mana 1/4 there with a nice repeatable value engine ability. So now we are in pack 3, and we do see Flourishing Hunter in green, the only green card. And it's definitely better than the black cards in here, Desperate Farmer and Bat Whisperer. They're both fine, but Flourishing Hunter is just a great way to get back in the game. 6 mana 6/6 that gains a ton of life when it enters the battlefield, gains life equal to the next highest toughness among your creatures. So yeah, quite a big fan of Flourishing Hunter, and I'm just going to take it here. Maybe just in order to not get so married to green here and our green rares, we're supposed to take the best uncommon here, which is Scab Wrangler, or Revenge of the Drowns, one of the best commons. But I feel like those are solid. Flourishing Hunter is just a pretty great green common, and yeah, I don't feel like I'm missing out too massively much by not moving into another color there. But we are really fingers crossed that we're not getting cut off of green just immediately. I have noticed with this format, at least for me, it feels like blue has been just always underdrafted and green has basically always been overdrafted. Like I've never been in a pod where I could end up with a green deck that I was particularly happy with, unfortunately. So I'm really hoping this time is that time. So here we do have a Siege Zombie in black, which is quite nice, a 2-mana 2/2 that gives you some nice reach, some nice flexibility later in the game, a way to drain life from your opponent, even if the board state's too cluttered to attack in well. So a great finisher and early drop. So a really good card, especially with Old Rutstein, where we might be getting insect tokens. Alright, and it looks like things were a little rocky there with the first couple packs, but now we do see some great green cards are still left in this pack, Hound Tamer being my favorite of them, a 3-mana 3/3 trample with a good activated ability to put +1/+1 counters on whatever target creature you wish. And it's even better during the night. Alright, oh yeah, and we're just going to keep it up with excellent green uncommons. Outland Liberator now, a 2-mana 2/2 you can sacrifice to destroy an artifact or enchantment. That's already an incredible main deck artifact and enchantment removal spell, but even during the night, during the night it gets even better, becoming a 3/3 that destroys an artifact or enchantment every time it attacks. So super, super good card. And yeah, now we have just a great green creature here, the Hookhand Mariner, a 4-mana 4/4 during the day, 6/4 that's hard to block during the night. Duel for Dominance is one of the weaker green removal spells in the format because it does make your creature actually fight the opposing creature instead of just deal damage equal to its power. So it is possible that there are things you want to kill that now you have to trade your creature into because it's a fight spell. So ideally we can pick up Wolf Strike as our green removal spell, and then if we do end up in green-black, we can pick up all the great black removal later on as well. But here it'll be an easy Silverbolt as the removal spell. However, we could now speculate on another color because we're not seeing anything in black. Could maybe go to green-blue. Once again, I feel like the best cards in this pack are blue. I feel like blue has been super underdrafted in general in my pods. Scattered Thoughts and Gutter Skulker are both pretty great pickups, but Blood Celebrant and Sure Strike aren't bad if we want to potentially go down green-red. I think I'm just going to stay nice and open and just take the colorless Silverbolt. for removal. So now, not much. I guess Bounding Wolf is okay. I'm not a fan of the Bramble Armor because re-equipping this costs so much mana after that initial attachment. And the off-color cards aren't sweet. I mean, Binding Geist is fine, Heron Blessed Geist is fine, Ritual of Hope is fine. I'm just going to take a Bounding Wolf here. Really cut green off of everybody else here. Now we'll just slam down a Dawnheart Rejuvenator for the same reason. Try and cut green from everybody on our left. Now a green-white dual land in case we go down white. And I'm just going to take gems here. And Path to the Festival would be decent mana fixing, but Harvesttide Sentry is also fine. A 2-mana 3/1 later in the game. It's got that Coven ability, so your opponent can't trade off with a small creature into it, which is nice. And even Snarling Wolf's a nice pickup. So what do we see here? Unfortunately, our 2 rares are not particularly good. Cemetery Gatekeeper is good in an aggressive deck, but it's only like uncommon power level generally in terms of limited cards. Just a 2-mana 2/1 first strike the vast majority of the time. Sometimes being able to damage your opponent with that extra 2 damage can matter, but it also damages you, so it is a double-edged sword. So not a super great rare, and Triskaidekaphile just a slow card draw engine, emphasis on slow. But it can be good. That being said, there's nothing in green, and the black cards aren't great, just Grisly Ritual or Shady Traveler. I'd say this pack in general is pretty awful. I think the only people that'd be happy to see this pack would be red decks. I mean, Gatekeeper, Celebrants, and Markov Waltzer are probably the best 3 cards in the pack. Winterhorn Blessing? This might even be better than Triskaidekaphile. It's basically just as color restrictive because we're already definitely green. So it's just if we end up in blue, we can play Winterhorn Blessing now. And, well, we might end up in blue here. We get past a Hullbreaker Horror, a 7-mana, 7/8 flash, can't be countered, and whenever you cast a spell, bounce one of your opponent's cards. Just a super big bomb, because you can slam this down during your opponent's end step, so no sorcery speed removal can kill it. You definitely get the first attack off with it. If you have a lot of instants in your deck, you can keep bouncing the removal spells they try to use on it. Just a ridiculous card. It's going to be the pick for me here. And yeah, I guess we're playing blue for the 10th draft in a row. Because now I think a Lantern Bearer is pretty much the best card in this pack. Nice 1-mana 1/1 flyer with that Lantern's Lift, which is particularly good in green-blue, because Lantern's Lift later on, 3 mana, and all of a sudden, bam, my Hookhand Mariner is a 5/5 flyer. Just turns any random green dork into a must-kill threat later in the game. Now we have Duel for Dominance, Massive Might, Wretched Throng. Again, I don't love Duel for Dominance. I'm higher on even Massive Might than that. So Massive Might or the Throng here are my picks. We could take Shipwreck Marsh and still try to splash in Old Rutstein. That actually might not be terrible. We have Dawnheart Rejuvenator for mana fixing as well. Actually, the commons aren't that great here. I'm just going to take a Shipwreck Marsh. Potential mana fixing to splash in 3 colors of cards. Cruel Witness is great, but so is Hookhand Mariner, and green is our much heavier color, so I'm taking the Hookhand Mariner. Alright, here's definitely a Foreboding Statue. I think this card will really shine in this deck, but Evolving Wilds would be good too. But the fact that Foreboding Statue ramps you up in mana is really good when you have 6 and 7 mana bombs like Flourishing Hunter and Hullbreaker Horror. Plus we have off-color cards like Old Rutstein to get off of the mana of any color. Old Stickfingers over here. Pretty fun card, as is Shadow Beast Sighting, but I think we have to go with Wolf Strike here. Because we just don't have any removal, and removal's highly important. That being said, Weaver of Blossoms, Shadow Beast Sighting, and Old Stickfingers would all be excellent for this deck. But we don't have a single unconditional removal spell yet, so we gotta take this Wolf Strike. And even Wolf Strike's somewhat conditional. We have to have a somewhat big creature to kill something with it. I think this will be Dormant Grove for me. I just like this card a lot. Make sure that you win the long game because your field just keeps getting bigger and bigger incrementally over time. And whenever you want to flip it, turn it into a big old 3/6 Vigilance, and all of your creatures have Vigilance from that point on. Pack's not great, I'll just take a 2-drop. I'll take a nice 3-drop with Reach to survive against flyer decks. And some more nonsense we won't play. Even in the self-mill decks, I don't love Otherworldly Gaze, but Fear of Death might not be bad. Throw that on a flyer, self-mill yourself a little bit. Pretty cool. We're not that much of a self-mill deck, though, because now we're cutting the old Rutstein and all that. I don't think I'm that likely to get another Wretched Throng, so I'll take a Massive Might here. Get a bunch of Snarling Wolves. Crossroads Candleguide, and we open up Avabruck Caretaker in the last pack for this heavy green deck. Absolutely rewarded by the Arena Shuffler with probably the biggest green bomb in the entire format. Absolutely absurd card. So we are definitely green and X ramp. Wow, this deck looks sweet, just in Simic here. Probably don't need the black mana splash for just old Rutstein. I even forgot about the Winterhorn Blessing we picked up. Makes the deck even better. This is looking great. Great stuff. Jisa is a double black, so she's kind of a difficult splash, so I don't think I'm going to go for her here. I think I'll just take another solid green card, and I particularly like Shadow Beast Sighting because of the flashback ability on it. So it combos well with the little bit of self-mill we've got going on. Bit expensive, but we've got a little bit of mana ramp, and hopefully we can pick up a little more in this pack. But I'll take that over the other green cards. Another Hookhand Mariner, another Rejuvenator. Really like ramping to Caretaker and Horror. So I'm almost higher on the Rejuvenator here. Ideally, the best ramp cards you're going to pick up are 2 and 3 mana ramp cards, because by the time you have 4, there's very few cards in your deck that still need more mana. So we would much prefer the 3 mana Maned Work that we passed up on earlier for the Wolf Strike, the Weaver Blossoms, or another Foreboding Statue. Those would both be excellent pickups. This pack has basically nothing for us. Some very filler stuff. Don't have enough to flip a Delver. Millipede, we're not that far down the self-mill plan. I'll just take a Binding Geist, I guess. Siphon Essence could be fine since we're pretty low on removal. Just another way to have an answer to a potential bomb. Ooh, a Rise of Ants. Another Siphon Essence, a Rise of Ants, or a decent 2-drop blocker, the Steelclad Spirit of the potential Death-Touching Pestilent Wolf. I'm just going to take the Rise of Ants. I probably shouldn't, because we don't have that much ramp, but I really like this card. 6 mana for 2/3/3s, gain 2 life, then you do it again. Just really clutter up the board, and you just, like, shut off the aggro decks. If you make it to 6 mana, aggro decks just cry when you start dropping Rise of the Ants. I like Pack Leader better than a 3rd Rejuvenator. If that Rejuvenator were one of the 3 mana ramp cards, I think I'd just take it here, but Pack Leader's a lot of fun. The worst case scenario is it's a 1 mana 2/1, and we've got a lot of mana value 4 or more cards, so it's probably going to get a counter here or there. Locked in the Cemetery, we don't have a lot of removal, so that'll definitely make the cut. And I guess a Duel for Dominance will likely as well. A Retrieve to pick up our insane bombs. If we want. A little bit of self-mill on the Amalgam, that's definitely getting cut though. A little bit of self-mill on Millipede, that's also probably getting cut. We also are probably cutting Retrieve. We're not really using it until late game, because I'm probably trying to just lower the self-mill plan in general. Just be Simic ramp, kind of like you would get in Hour of Devastation drafts if you've ever played that format. Just very basic Simic ramp stuff here, which means these Snarling Wolves are less good as well, because we're not that aggro. Massive Might, prefer the removal spells over the combat trick. Duel for Dominance is one of our weaker removal spells. Retrieve is very slow. Need to cut 10 cards, that's 5 already. Don't love the self-mill stuff going on, so get the Millipede out of here maybe. Tumors are worst 2-drop, although Dawnheart Disciple is not very good either. Maybe we cut Dawnheart Disciple instead. And Tumor's fine with Disturb cards like Binding Geist. and it's fine if we have like a Hullbreaker Horror in our hand and we only have 4 mana. Like sometimes we just gotta ditch it for something castable. I don't really want to be in those situations generally. Binding Geist and Apprentice Sharpshooter are the weakest 3 drops. And this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cuts. This still isn't enough cuts. We still need to cut another card. We certainly can't cut a land in this deck. We might even throw an 18th in here. Although we have 3 mana ramp creatures, Foreboding Statue and double Dawnheart Rejuvenator. What is a mana curve? Mana curves are for cowards. Let's cut another 2-drop here and just stack it up at 4 mana plus. I think I should almost definitely get another land in here too at that rate. Dormant Grove might be too slow for us, because now we have a pretty low creature count. Although it's going to be really hard for us to hold up counter mana. So maybe Siphon Essence is the cut. Like everything in our deck except Hullbreaker Horror is just like a big sorcery speed card that we're dumping all of our mana into. Yeah, Siphon Essence might be a bit too difficult. Hopefully our Locked in the Cemetery and Wolf Strike and Fear of Death can get us there to survive scary cards from our opponents. Or, you know, just playing even scarier cards than they have, like an Averbrook Caretaker. Let's get that Siphon Essence out of here, throw an 18th land in, and call it a day. Alright, so yeah, that is the deck. Just a dirtily Simic ramp deck with some massive stuff at the top end. We'll see how well the big drops can save us from aggro decks in round 1. Alright, well, this is a concerning hand because we have no creatures till turn 6, but we have Winterhorn Blessing to slow our opponent down. We have both colors of mana. Really rough to mulligan a hand like this because it could so easily be just a lot worse, just stuck on one color or not enough lands or too many lands, anything like that. We can go ahead and just Fear of Death to slow down this Unruly Mob. Just keep us alive till we start casting big stuff. We'd rather play Winterhorn Blessing later because we might have a creature out at that time so we can get some +1/+1 counters out of it as well. We do have the turn 4 Dawnheart Rejuvenator here, and our opponent didn't have a turn 3 place. That is excellent with that Flourishing Hunter and the Dormant Grove. There's a Dormant Grove of their own, so they're just going to start buffing this Unruly Mob until it's big enough to maybe get in. Oh, wow, now we're ramping into a Flourishing Hunter and a Hullbreaker Horror. Flourishing Hunter next turn, Hullbreaker Horror the turn after that, potentially. Laid to Rest, so when their humans die, they draw a card. Well, it's definitely Flourishing Hunter time. And there's the 7th mana for Hullbreaker Horror next turn. We are doing the thing here. That's for sure. Simic Ramp is about to give somebody the business. Alright, we'll let them draw their card here if they want to spend a couple combat tricks to kill here. That's cool too. I'm just going to bounce it with Loyal Griff, replay it as a 1/1 here. That's fine as well. Get that end step Hullbreaker Horror. For now we're attacking with our 6/6. Wow, we have some backup plays here. Hookhand Mariner and Dormant Grove after all that. Counter onto the Loyal Griff. That is a flyer, so Hullbreaker Horror will do nothing to that. So just let that happen and wait till the end step. Here it is. Hullbreaker Horror. We can kill both their blockers. They take lethal if we do. So here we go. Wolf Strike, shoot an Unruly Mob, throw the other one into hand, and we're attacking for dead on board. For lethal on board. We could also have just done Winterhorn Blessing, I guess. Probably should have just done Winterhorn Blessing. Either way, no instant speed interaction from our opponent. That is going to be a quick victory for the Simic Ramp deck. Here we are in round 2. We've actually got a pretty good curve this time of our 2, 3, and 4 drop. We are on the draw here. But luckily, out of all the hands this deck could draw, which is one of the hands where I'm not that worried that our opponent's on the play, because we actually have some early game blockers to an extent. So our opponent starts with turn 1 Silverbolt. They're on a green deck. Green-red, so could be a werewolf deck over here. Just green-red beat sticks in general. Tap out for Harvest-Tide Infiltrator here. So Outland Liberator is going to trade for their Silverbolt, basically either way. Either they're going to have to spend the mana to do that, or I will spend the mana to do that. So I think I don't really want to put anything else on this board, because if I put Hound Tamer on the board, they're just going to Silverbolt it, because they know they have to use Silverbolt soon. So I might want to just flip and force them to use Silverbolt, because I also don't want to Winterhorn Blessing and commit more counters onto the Liberator. So I'm just going to pass turn here. Kind of just forces them to use Silverbolt on this Trap Breaker, or else Trap Breaker just kills Silverbolt without us losing the creature. We do take 4 here, though, unfortunately, in order to do this. So yeah, we force our opponents to kind of blink first there and do the Silverbolt. So now, I think Hound Tamer it is, although I could double spell next turn if I do Hound Tamer plus Winterhorn Blessing. I could also just cast Winterhorn Blessing twice next turn. Down to 12. Harvest-Tide Assailant is definitely putting in work with how big it is during the night, and there's another one. Now we have a Wolf Strike too. Are we going to go for the double spell to flip back to day? Kind of want to just tap down the Assailant, attack in for 5, and then we can Wolf Strike their other Assailant during their turn, but we keep it at nighttime so our pup is still big. And then we still have another Winterhorn Blessing for whatever they cast this turn. Unnatural Growth. Well, let's kill that Assailant before it gets that giant buff, because that's a threatening buff from our opponent. Fear of Death here actually going to be a pretty big nerf on their Assailant. We could Dormant Grove Fear of Death. How good does Unnatural Growth work? Once we Fear of Death, we'll have 5 Engrave. -5, -0. So it's going to do nothing. Yeah, I like Dormant Grove Fear of Death here, and then we Winterhorn Blessing next turn. And even if they somehow get a massive buff out of this, Dormant Grove will be a 3/6, and our creatures have Vigilance, so we'll still have blockers this way. Yeah, flip Grove. Fear of Death the Assailant seems just excellent to me. Just shuts it off here. Even with that Unnatural Growth. Double -2 is just -4, right? Dire Strain Rampage, alright, well, blow that up, we get to search for a basic, and I sure will. Means they are going to have a big attack here if they press in. However, then we could have lethal on the crackback if they do that. If this was a combat trick, in order to get even more damage out, they would have had to do this pre-combat. So I think I just take it. A Crossroads Candle Guide is a blocker. We can tap it down with Winterhorn Blessing and have lethal on board. That's 9 damage on board. And I totally didn't even realize they could have exiled the flashback spell with the Candle Guide there. But we'd still be in a good position because we attack both. They're forced into a chump because then we use Hound Tamer's ability to buff the other one. And then we even drew into the Rejuvenator to gain a couple more life, so we'd still have these giant Vigilant blockers. We'd be good either way. Here we are now, game 3 with Simic Ramp, undefeated so far, 2-0. Very keepable hand here. Liberator and Sentry for the early game, and we know what we're trying to win the game with. Once we hit 7 mana. Ambitious Farmhand, turn 2 from our opponent. Excellent deal for them. 2 cards in one, both a creature and a land, and that creature is going to be a 3/3 lifelinker eventually. I'm going to go ahead and play Outland Liberator, so that until they flip the Ambitious Farmhand, it doesn't get to attack in. If I just play Harvest-Tide Sentry, that flips, or that trades with the farmhand either way. So they're going to go ahead and use a removal spell. Just threatening us with 1 damage here. I'm kind of cool with just cracking the clue. Let's see what we've got. Dormant Grove. Potentially pretty nice. Turn 4, they've got an Estwald Shield Basher. That is not ideal. This thing is very, very good on the offensive and very bad on the defense. Luckily for our opponent, they are certainly on the offensive here. So I think we're going to use our lucky draw of the Winterhorn Blessing to keep that Shield Basher down for a moment. And that'll keep Ambitious Farmhand from attacking in also, because we have 2 toughness against their 1 power. We're just trying to protect our butt until 7 mana. Cloaked Cadet. So it has training, and when they put a +1/+1 counter on a human, they draw a card. So when they train that up by attacking with that and Shield Basher together, they'll draw a card. So I think I want a Winterhorn Blessing again. Although Dormant Grove would even work because we make the Sentry a 5/3. So it can trade with their Cadet even if they train it up. I don't really want to trade with the Cadet. I want to get our Sentry to a point where it's too big for anything they have to attack in. So I think I just want a Winterhorn Blessing again and then Dormant Grove next turn. Because this, again, it gives them no attacks for the turn. All we're trying to do is just postpone whatever their plans are until we've got a Hullbreaker Horror down. Alright, Farmhand flips, so that can attack in. It can even attack in with Cadet and train it. Totally forgot about the Coven triggering here. So either way, we played it here. Our Sentry would not be big enough to hold off their attacks. Yeah, and they're going to go for the card draw. This is really annoying. If I trade off with Cadet, they don't get to draw any more cards anymore, but then they're attacking us for 7 next turn. We have absolutely nothing on the board, because Dormant Grove doesn't do anything without a creature out. But then again, if I don't trade, and I do play Dormant Grove, I'll have a 6/4 Harvest-Tide Sentry, which still isn't big enough to block Estwald Shield Basher or Cloaked Cadet, because next turn Cloaked Cadet's going to be a 4/6, so it'll just trade next turn anyway. This is a really rough position, but I'm just going to take the trade here. Gotta hit another creature or something here. Well, there's another creature, and it would have been a lot better had we not traded off the Sentry, because then we would have gained some life off of it. But still pretty good, still a great draw, probably like the best draw we could have had here. Get a 6/6 down. They'll imprison it. 1 removal spell down for Hullbreaker Horror. Might not even have time though, because we're taking 9 right now. We play a Hullbreaker Horror next turn, block Shield Basher, take 5 more. We're 1 damage from lethal. They play a single human or just any creature this turn, and we're just dead next turn. There's a Wolf Strike now. Do we Dormant Grove and hold up Wolf Strike to kill Shield Basher? Then we have a 3/6 blocker. We have a 3/6 blocker, we kill their indestructible attacker. Because if I just try to Hullbreaker Horror here, I die to instant speed removal. I die to them playing a single human. Because I play Hullbreaker Horror, block Shield Basher, they play a single human, this is attacking as a 3/3 also, and I'd still take 6. I feel like I'm a good bit safer playing Dormant Grove and holding up Wolf Strike, and then playing Hullbreaker Horror next turn. It doesn't matter, they have instant speed removal either way. I guess we take 5 and go to 1. But yeah, if I played Hullbreaker Horror, they just kill it now with Fierce Retribution. Wow, we were really just out of this game. Doesn't really matter what I target here. Oh my god. Oh my god. Maybe not quite out of it. That's 2 blockers and we bounced one of theirs. Pack leader's gonna be a 3/2 to trade with Cathar. Even if they kill Hullbreaker Horror. The 1-drop coming in clutch, at least giving us another turn here. We gotta draw really well. Oh no, they drew a 2/1 creature. for 2 more creatures on board when we're at 1 life. Seems really big. Oh my god! Again, they play 1 removal spell or 1 creature, and we're still just dead. But we'll see here. No removal, please. Fingers crossed so hard. They crack the imprisonment for the blood token to dig for removal here, I'm guessing. Here they go. Get rid of that plains to draw a card. Oh my god, we draw another blocker, and it's nighttime now to get a counter on everybody. Bounce a card again. Bounce their cards that don't have ETB effects. Counters on all of our stuff. They have 4 power. I'm going to hold 3 blockers left. Actually, our whole board has hexproof. They can't kill anything, even if they have removal. So I think we attack with 2, right? Because unless they get haste, they can't kill anything. Everybody's got hexproof. We've cast 1 spell here. They can double spell, but then our stuff loses hexproof during our next turn, after they've already went past their combat step. They're green-white, so no haste to worry about. Got more than enough power to stop any trample combat tricks. And there's the concession. Oh my god. Oh my god. That was a grimy game of Magic. That was absolutely disgusting. Opponent got off with the great aggro, putting us down to 1 life, and now my opponent's sitting here a few turns later. They're going to be telling stories about this for years. So like they were at 1 life, and then my opponent just went Hullbreaker Horror into Ascendant Pack Leader to bounce a card into Avabrook Caretaker, 2 of the biggest bombs in the whole format, and just didn't stop drawing creatures to block and bounce. What an absurd game of Magic. What an absolute luck sack we are at the end of that game. We are now 3-0. Here we are now game 4. We're on the draw again with a pretty great hand. Outland Liberator on 2. That Winterhorn Blessing to beef it up and slow our opponent down. Shadow Beast Sighting should be great on 4 as well. We've got a Foreboding Statue turn 3 as well to get ramping into a guaranteed Shadow Beast Sighting next turn. Playing against blue, white, and green, they slam down a Dawnheart Mentor. Very nice card. 0/4 and a 1/1 all together for 3, and a really good mana sink later on to give trample and +3/+3. Pretty threatening card later. Let's just get this Foreboding Statue down so we can start working on getting our own 5/5 out of this. 4 mana now from our opponent as they are on the play. Harvesttide Sentry. They have Coven now for Dawnheart Mentor, but they need 6 mana to play around with that. And a Traveling Minister as well. So because of Coven, Harvesttide Sentry is unblockable against these 2. I think we just want to go with Shadow Beast Sighting, get a nice 4/4 down here. Buff up that Harvesttide Sentry so it would trade into our 4/4 if we go for the block. That's the only creature that can block because of the Coven ability, which is pretty annoying. I think we still just trade, because we're going to get another creature out of the Shadow Beast Sighting later, and we're not going to have anything else on this board for quite some time that can block that. I'm glad I did, because it's not getting any bigger with this Quartermaster now. If we kill the Quartermaster, they don't have Coven anymore, and we do have the mana to do that with this Silver Bolt, and we are only taking like 3 or 4 for the turn because we've tapped out. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Let's just Silverbolt this Quartermaster. Although I suppose they do trigger Coven every turn off of Traveling Minister if they want it. They just have to have the minister target the mentor, or actually no, they can't trigger Coven. They can have 1s and 3s, or they can have 1s and 2s. So actually, yeah, that works out really well. Need to play another creature to start getting Coven again. Not that it matters as much now, because their only Coven card requires 6 mana to do anything. So 3 cards in hand from our opponent. Decent little board state. See where things go from here with their Bant deck. Join the dance, get a bunch of 1/1s here. Get even more later if they want. Attack for 4, I take it. Primal Adversary is the draw. Very few lands here. We have 3 in the opener. We might have drawn 0 lands this game. With 4 mana up. When does this flip? Beginning of your... Let's see. Beginning of your end step? Your end step, if there are 3 or more counters on it. Untap it, transform it. Okay, so we definitely tap it here. So 4 mana to play around with. We can Winterhorn Blessing and Fear of Death. We can Lantern Bearer and Primal Adversary. Don't really want to play Primal Adversary. I'd love to dump that out with a bunch of mana. There's nothing I really want to lock in the Cemetery or Fear of Death right now. I think I just want more blockers, really. Let's just play a Lantern Bearer. Play a Pack Leader. And we can Winterhorn Blessing if we want, but it's unnecessary, so we should probably just leave it as a backup plan for later. The Forsaken Thresher is active. The 5/5 has arrived. And the 5/5 is about to go away. They are reading the card intently. They're about to snipe it out of here. Oh, just another Join the Dance for some more 1/1s. So they don't really have good attacks here. We're pretty safe. Nice. So we have 5 mana this turn thanks to that land draw. Could double Winterhorn Blessing to make our flyer a 3/3 and just start attacking with a 3/3 flyer every turn. It's not particularly impressive though. We could make Forsaken Thresher a 7/7. Tap 2 of their things down and they have 4 power to block it with. But then we don't have a good blocker up. We could Primal Adversary with enough mana to kick it 1 time. It's not much. Still just don't love this position. The fact that they can start using Mentor's ability is a big deal. Guess I'm just going to double Blessing here with the Lantern Bearer. $16 life. They're going to crack back for 4, 5, because they use Minister's ability. So 5, and if they tap all of their mana, they crack back for 8. So we hit for 8, then they hit for 8, but they gain a life in the process. We're already at a lower life total. Might not be worth attacking both, because Thresher does hold everything off. Because the only way they get Coven is if they make their 2 a 3. Or no, they make one of their 1s a 2. So yeah, then I can't block that one because they can make that a 5. But I could block any of their other 1/1s with the Thresher, another one with Liberator. Yeah, they just don't have attacks if we don't send in Thresher. We don't race particularly well here, so I don't think I want to send in Thresher. Alright. We have 6 mana now, and it's nighttime, so our Trap Breaker's a 3/3. Still not enough mana for Shadow Beast Sighting, but we have enough mana to use Primal Adversary and have one of our lands be untapped this turn. An untapped 3/3. They don't have Coven, so we can attack with Thresher. Attack with Thresher and Bearer, and we get to Primal Adversary for some more blockers. We have to do it main phase 1, though, because of the Thresher mana. Would I trade Trapbaker for 3 1/1s? Yeah, I'm going to do that while it's still nighttime. Although their creatures are going to untap now, so I got to have some blockers. Probably rather trade Trapbreaker than the Forest. So I think I'll attack like this and keep these as blockers. Alright, cool. 3 1/1s. Howdy. And they're down to 13 now. We've got 3 cards in grave, so not enough to tap something down with Locked in the Cemetery. Candle Trap on Primal Adversary. They don't have Coven, and I think they can't get it again because they're just 1s and 2s. Maybe they couldn't have gotten Coven this whole time, and I was just... Coven's way too... I can't do Coven. Just miss me with all that Coven. I have no idea. Just never know. Now we have Shadow Beast Sighting mana, so I think we just do it. Get in with Lantern Bearer. They only have 4 power to block with. Attack with the 5/5 as well. They're down to 6. Glorious Sunrise, a somewhat big deal. I think we're still in the better spot. Actually, this is a really big deal. The longer they last with it, the more value it gives them. It gives them quite a bit of value over time. Looks like they're going to go for the draw card. Probably just attack all and kill them here. Alright, they scoop them up. I was just going to attack all there, but since we drew a Hullbreaker Horror, I was going to attack with everything except the Forest instead. That way I could use the Forest to cast the Hullbreaker Horror there. Here we are now, Game 5. Undefeated so far, we are 4-0, but our opponent's on the play with a turn 1 creature against a somewhat slow hand. So already on the back foot here. Could end poorly for us if they have the curve out. Yep. 1-drop creature, 2-drop creature. Already going to be in a lot of pain here, especially because the Daybound, Nightbound mechanic really punishes you for not having early drops. It just flips your opponent's werewolves for free. So now they're all going to come out even bigger. They're already pressuring us for 5 damage with only their turn 1 and turn 2 play on the board. Wow, yeah, and their starters are the exact kind of cards that really punish us for a slow start, because it's even the werewolf that gives them more mana and buffs their whole field with +1/+1. Luckily, Silverbolt can kill any werewolf, so we're just going to go ahead and kill this 5/5 werewolf that can get more counters right now. But I would really not be surprised they just play an even worse werewolf for us this turn, because now they'll have 5 mana available potentially. And even if they don't play 1, they're hitting us for 7 if they buff that wolf. Yep. Looks like a smack for 7 here, and potentially even a 3-drop afterwards. Certainly is. Just an absolutely brutal start from our opponent. I think we have no shot now. If we got really lucky and drew this Harvesttide Sentry to play turn 2 so that they couldn't flip Lord of the Elvenwold, this game would have looked much different. Because this would trade off into that or force them to use removal or something, and it wouldn't be nighttime, so they wouldn't have the extra mana to dump cards out early, and they wouldn't be buffing their entire field. But just not having a turn 2 play when our opponent dropped Kessig Naturalist on 2 just really seals it. A really fast, very standard way to lose a game of Magic there. Here we are now in round 6, 4-1, opponent on the play again, but this time we've got a 1-drop and a 2-drop to get on the board and potentially block if our opponent's aggressive. And they do start turn 1 Lantern Bearer, so I'm super happy to have our own in here. We'll take that trade easy. There's another Lantern Bearer of theirs, so that's why they were so adamant about sending in for the trade. They've just got a backup. We do have Foreboding Statue to play turn 3 now to try to ramp out, but we could also throw a Lantern Bearer on our Sentry instead, but now we draw into another ramp creature, so I think I want to just get ramping here. Do we offer the trade with Graphkeeper on an attack here? They probably just take the trade and then make another flyer. Flyers are going to be a big deal for us, so I don't think we do send in the Sentry. I think we just play Statue and pass. That being said, now they can just give the Graphkeeper flying with the aura from their grave if they want, and if we're not taking the trade on the attack, we're not going to take it on the block either. They're going to imprison the Sentry here. Alright, I'm pretty fine with that. Do have 5 mana for a big Primal Adversary here, but we get this mana out with Rejuvenator, then if we top deck a land, we're playing Hullbreaker Horror next turn, and I think that's pretty big. We're also gaining a life here. Well, gaining 3 life here. Either way, pretty nice to stem the bleeding. Nice 2/4 out to block the Graph Keepers that are just hitting us for 1. Down to 18. Pass turn. Let's go ahead and get a mana from the statue to get an Omen counter on it. Do have the 6 mana for the Rise of the Ants, but our opponent's on blue and they're completely untapped, so I'm not going to tap out because that would tap my creatures as well. I will go ahead and play a Dormant Grove though. Probably gets countered, but much better than jamming out a Rise of the Ants that gets countered. Maybe it doesn't. We'll see here. Go to combat. Now we have a 2/3 statue and a 2/4 rejuvenator, so we have 2 creatures big enough to block Graph Keeper. Pass the turn here. Scattered Thoughts it is. Alright, a draw spell. We have 5 mana up now. Play another Lantern Bearer. And a Gavany Silversmith to buff both of them so they're attacking us for potentially 4 damage every turn in the sky. Two for now, down to 16. Now is the turn where Foreboding Statue is going to flip, and they don't have the mana to counter anything, so Rise of the Ants it is, and we gain some life and flip the statue. Or, I guess we could Lantern Bearer instead, so we have a flying blocker, which could be a big deal, but some life gain is also a big deal. If we Lantern Bearer, we can do that in Primal Adversary. That's it. I guess we Lantern Bearer on Rejuvenator here. I don't really want to put all my eggs in one basket, so that like a single removal spell completely unhinges my game plan. So like if I throw this on the statue and then I have a 6/6 flyer untapped, like if they blow that up, they stop my mana ramper and my biggest creature and my only flying blocker. So I think I'd rather spread it out, throw it on the Rejuvenator. And I guess I could go ahead and flip Dormant Grove here even to give Vigilance. That does seem pretty big. Yeah, no, our board is massive. Actually pretty nice. Lanterns lift on the Silversmith and they get to tap down Rejuvenator and attack in all this turn. But this will be their one attack they get in after this Rejuvenator can block it all. So we're down to 9 and we'll gain Rise of the Ants life here. Another Lantern Bearer. Good God. Unfortunately, do not draw another land here, so we can't tap out for Rise of the Ants without tapping Rejuvenator, so I don't think we can afford to do that. We can Fear of Death that Silversmith, I guess. So we really just can't afford to tap my flyer down here. And we mill 2 lands, uh-oh. SpaghettiOs? So if I attack into this Lantern Bearer, they block with Lantern Bearer, recast it with Graph Keeper, so that they can then tap down our 1 flying blocker again. This Devoted Graph Keeper is just actually an insane problem here. I should have offered the trade for that a long time ago with Harvesttide Sentry. They probably wouldn't have taken it, but who knows, maybe. We just can't. We just can't attack here. Can't let them Lantern Bearer because it just kills us. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I guess not quite, but it gets real close with Graph Keeper's ability. I'm going to go ahead and just play Primal Adversary as a 4/3 here. When we get more mana, we're going to be casting Rise of the Ants and Hullbreaker Horror. It's really a Primal Adversary. This just gets us a little bit closer to having a board that can just go wide around their stuff, which unfortunately we are pretty far from right now. Pulls out their Syncopate. I'm actually really happy with that. That means Rise of the Ants doesn't get syncopated. At the same time, Hullbreaker Horror is uncounterable, so the Hullbreaker Horror didn't need to worry about the syncopate, but nice that Rise of the Ants is safe now. I am so happy they didn't attack there. My fear, if they attack, is that they set things up for next turn, where they recast Lantern Bearer and go ham on us. So I'm going to Rise of the Ants here rather than Hullbreaker Horror, because I can't Hullbreaker Horror during their turn, because I have to use the Thresher mana during our turn, so we'd have to tap down our 1 flying blocker yet again. if we wanted to cast that. So opponent's going to go ahead and get a blood token and crack it here, I'm assuming. They are indeed. Discard a land, draw a card. Screaming Swarm, that's horrible. Every time they attack us with something, they mill us now. But we did hit the Hullbreaker Horror mana that we need now. We could also just recast Rise of the Ants, but then we're not playing a Hullbreaker Horror. I think our whole plan here is going to be to Hullbreaker Horror and try to just surprise kill them. By casting multiple spells next turn, I suppose. Hullbreaker Horror is on the ground, so it's not going to block anything here. But it's still going to be a big deal. They're going to mill themselves, so they could hit disturb cards for the Graphkeeper. Oh my god, yeah. We have one turn to kill them. Because if we don't kill them here, they play that from the grave, tap down our single flying blocker, and they're attacking for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They're attacking for 9 flying damage, plus they would have hit us for 5 right now. So if we take this, we go super lower, then they definitely kill us next turn. So, yep, we have to somehow have Hullbreaker Horror find lethal. So let's see what we can do here. Alright, a Covetous Castaway. Pass turn. Because they're trying to hold these for the taps. So they have 2 tap downs available next turn. Alright, here's the Horror. Come on, cheap card. Hound Tamer. Hound Tamer's cheap enough. We can play Hound Tamer and Mariner and bounce 2 cards here. Bounce 2 cards. They have 2 total blockers. They block our biggest cards. So they block our 6/6 and our 7/8. They take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We don't quite kill them. So we would need to bounce stuff where they can't find lethal. They can give anything flying and give anything lifelink. So we bounce their 2 biggest creatures then. We bounce Screaming Swarm and their Lantern Bearer, and then they have 1, 2, 3, 4 power on the board. They can add 1 more with Lantern Bearer. Yeah, bounce the highest power creatures here. If I bounce Graphkeeper, they can easily just spend 2 and put it back on the board to tap things down again. Although 2 powers... Yeah, 2 power is still the highest power on the board, so it's still our best bounce. Just bounce the highest power creature that can also block here. They shouldn't be able to find lethal on us next turn, which means that we find lethal on them the turn after that. Alright. There's the concession. We are now 5-1. And I really... The big factor in killing the Graphkeeper there, or bouncing it there, is unless they drew another white source, they couldn't play the Graphkeeper and play the lifelinking aura from the grave. Because the lifelinking aura is the only thing that would make me moderately worried they could survive another hit by me. But yeah, that's 5-1 no matter what. Grabbing those 1,500 gems we spent on entry, taking them right back, and keeping all of these sweet bomb rares to boot. Alright, here we are now, round 7. Pretty great opener, and we are on the play. Got a 2-drop, and then some solid 4 mana cards. Let's get going with our Outland Liberator. And we are in the position that one opponent was that last time, where our opponent gets punished for not having to play. They flip our card for free for us. There's a Briarbridge Tracker, but we get to attack in and blow up their clue tokens, so we're not even that worried about it. We're not going to Wolf Strike it, because we get a free kill on the clue token. Puts it right back to being a 2/3, which turns that into a chump block, which I believe they've realized now, so they're like, well, so much for that block. And since it's nighttime, really put the pressure on with a 6/4 Riphook Raider that Briarbridge Tracker can't even block. And they're just going to scoop them up there, stuck on 1 mana. Kind of the reverse of that game that we had against the Red-Green Werewolves deck. Really unfortunate time for our opponent there. Alright, here we are now in round 8. Could be the final round if we get a win here, but we've got an awfully slow hand. It might even be a mulligan. We don't play anything till turn 4. I think I am going to mull here. That was the one hand we got really punished for last time. So this time at least we've got a 3-drop. We'll get rid of this blue card with only green mana in hand. But certainly not an ideal start. The mulligan down a card here on the play. And our opponent's got a good curve, 1-drop, 2-drop here. Looking like a potential repeat of that bad time we had in the past. Do I want to play a Primal Adversary? Stinger still gets to attack into it, but Flame Channeler will just get blocked. Yeah, it'll just get blocked without a trade, so I am going to drop Primal Adversary now rather than waiting to try to hit the kicker on it later. Unfortunately, a clear shot from our opponent's going to be an excellent deal. Clear that out of the way and give them additional damage. Now we've got a Pack Leader and a Sentry. Like playing the Mariner though, it's our only creature big enough to block either of those without dying. We can play Pack Leader next turn and it'll come in as a 3-2 because we've got a 4-drop out. They've got their own Primal Adversary here as just a 4-3. So I like playing our Pack Leader, that's a 3-2 that trades into Adversary. Playing our Sentry as a 3-1 that trades into Adversary, or even playing Dormant Grove here seems good. Either one of these does seem quite good to me. I think I would rather for now have a wider board and then we'll play Dormant Grove next turn. So I'm still definitely worried about cheap removal from our opponent like such. The Flame Blessed Bolt it is. That even flips the embodiment of flame. Absolute insanity here from our opponent. Now a Toxic Scorpion to give the first striker Death Touch. Guarantee they get that damage in there. Now we start buffing the board, make sure our 4-4 is big enough to block their 4-3 without dying. Tovolar from our opponent too here. Some nasty stuff, but a Winterhorn Blasting is going to be quite nasty from us. Flips to Knight, that card's absurd, because they can start giving anything +X+O trample till end of turn. Any wolf or werewolf. They only have the one wolf, at least. I think we probably do want to go for the double Winterhorn Blessing here. Definitely hit the Death Toucher. What does this do on the front half? When they're wolves and werewolves deal combat damage, they draw a card. If they control 3 of them, they get to auto-flip, but they don't control 3. So we tap Primal Adversary over anything else as the next best creature. And we can flip our Dormant Grove here, and then Harvesttide Sentry has Coven, which doesn't really matter because they have 3/3s to trade it with. So I don't think we flip the Grove yet. Probably just put more counters on our stuff. Snarling Wolf, they get that auto flip next turn then, and they've got a big fire-breathing fireball style trample effect at the ready. Tovolar is going to do some Tovolar things in a moment. Way too many creatures to attack into here still. We probably have to flip the Grove just to have more blockers. I think we're about to get slammed here. No attacks. Well, at least there's that. Maybe we draw into one of our big bomby cards. I am a fan of any game where we get to just sit here and stare at each other for a while. Outland Liberator? Is this still an enchantment? It is not. Thank goodness. Wow, if we hadn't flipped the Grove, that Outland Liberator would be an absurd draw from our opponent. Blow up the Grove, really wreck our plans. +3/+0 out of the fire breathing now. The problem is, so the reason that I've been like naysaying so much and saying that this is such a huge deal is when they have a fire breathing spell on Tovolar, every single one of their creatures can trade into one of ours no matter how big our creature is. Like this single 3/3 gets to get buffed into 6 power, which means I block it with anything and I'm trading one creature into one of theirs. If we're consistently trading one of my creatures for one of theirs, I have 3, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We are just guaranteed to lose this game over time. So that's why I'm naysaying so much about the Tovolar here. Why I'm saying that we're in a bad position here, because we are in a terrible position. We lose a creature in a 1-for-1 trade when we have 3 and they have 8, or we let them just sit here and keep drawing cards and damaging us a bunch. Neither one of those. Neither one of those ways that we go with that decision that we're given puts us anywhere close to victory. We're completely at the mercy of our draws here, trying to hit some bomb of our own. Wow, this is an incredible deck from our opponent. Multiple Flame Blessed Bolts. And to burn the Accursed. Rise of the Ants is a real good draw. And they flipped back to daytime by accident there, so we don't have to worry about Tovolar for a moment. Which is nice. Actually, we do, because they flip right back. I forgot how busted Tovolar is. Not actually that busted, but I forgot how good Tovolar is, that Tovolar just auto-flips back to night when you have enough wolves. They've got the Child of the Pack too for +1 to the whole field. This is absolute insanity here. Incredible deck from our opponent. Do a 1-for-1 trade there, and we can do a 1-for-1 trade there, I guess. It's the best we got. They even have the Trample at the ready. We can just make more ants after this. After these 1-for-1 trades. They're going to be drawing a couple cards here too, because they trampled over and hit us with 2 wolves. So it's not even a 1-for-1 trade, because they immediately replace what they just lost, and we've just got more lands. I'm just going to scoop them up here. What a wild deck from our opponent. Really, really well done. Well drafted and played. Absolute beating. Here we are in round 9, the final boss no matter what happens, 6-2, win or lose, final game of Magic for the night. And we've got a pretty solid keep at the start. We have our 2-drop and our 3-drop on curve, and we have a plan to win the game, the Avabrook Caretaker on 6. So we'll see where we go from here. We are on the draw, our opponent is on the play, so a good aggressive start is always going to benefit from being on the play. So we're certainly hoping for a slow deck from our opponent, and it's looking that way so far. Just Evolving Wilds turn 1, turn 2 here. On green-black, we'll play our turn 2 Outland Liberator. We're now only 1 mana away from Avabrook Caretaker in terms of mana in hand. So it's pretty unlikely we get mana screwed off the Caretaker at this point. However, we do need to draw blue source to use our Winterhorn Blessing. So there's an Eccentric Farmer from our opponent. Mills 3, picks up a land from their grave. Are they going to grab Evolving Wilds or Mountain here? Evolving Wilds, so they either don't need a 4th mana next turn and they just want to thin their deck, or they're playing more than 3 colors. So unfortunately, while we do hit the 6th mana for the Caretaker, we have 6 forests here, so Winterhorn Blessing looking pretty bad. But on the plus side, even if we don't have a turn 4, turn 5 play, we've got Hound Tamer's ability to get some counters on our creatures. And our opponent's playing nice and slow and steady for us, so we might have the time to just play around with that ability. There's the 4th mana from our opponent. They go for an untapped to play Sunstreak Phoenix. That is way faster than I was hoping for. Because we have nothing in the sky, and that's going to hit us for 4 each turn. If we had Winterhorn Blessing mana, this wouldn't be a problem at all, but without it, this is a really big deal. That kills us in 5 turns, and even once we get Caretaker out, there's nothing we can do about that. So let's go ahead and get this Dormant Grove down. Buff the Liberator, spread out our power toughness here. I don't think we want to trade into the Phoenix, although it might be worth it, because otherwise we're taking 4 a turn. Might have to just trade into it, because we just don't know when we're hitting a blue source. Whenever we hit a blue source, like, we'll be fine, but until then, I don't know. I guess I'm going to not trade here. Just going to keep the dream alive, keep the hopes of an island sometime soon here. But yeah, trading for the Phoenix might be worth it just to slow our opponent down, because Caretaker's such a good shot at victory here. But it's definitely going to come back. So it's not a good trade in terms of if time weren't a factor, if the only factor is trading Hound Tamer into Sunstreak Phoenix, good. Then the answer is just no, because Phoenix comes back. But it does save us time, which is an important factor to consider, and maybe I'm undervaluing that. The other problem, though, is they might not even take the trade. They might just go for races and just take 6 and then attack us back for 6, and now all of a sudden we're taking more damage than we would have otherwise. So that is another factor to consider. Alright, so here we are taking our first hit of 4 from the Sunstreak Phoenix. They're going to flip to Knight here? That'd be really good for us. Okay, no, they are going to play Toxic Scorpion. Okay, that means we really don't have attacks now, because they've got a Death Toucher out too, but there's the blue source to hold down the Sunstreak Phoenix. However, now we have another really hard choice. Averbrook Caretaker is almost infinitely better during the night, because it puts 2 counters on all of our creatures during combat. So we could just flip to Knight here by just using Hound Tamer's ability instead of Winterhorn Blessing, but we take another hit of 4 and go down to 12. I think that's worth it. The problem is our opponent could double spell and go back to day, and then we've lost any progress we made there. The problem is we're also taking 8. We're not taking 4, we're taking 8 if we choose to flip to Knight here, because then on turn 6 we're just going to play Averbrook Caretaker, we're not going to play Winterhorn Blessing. You know what? Oh god. I hate this so much. The decision is so difficult. I'm going to let it flip to Knight here. I feel like our nighttime attack is going to be absolutely absurd if it goes off. Because we get to flip our Dormant Grove as well, and then everybody has Vigilance. I was going to say I would love it if they attacked with Toxic Scorpion here, but it doesn't look like that is the case. Down to 12. They just passed the turn here with all this mana up. Almost definitely removal. But we'll find out. Rending Flame it is, you got us. Alright, it's still nighttime though, so Averbrook Caretaker during the night. Whole field has hexproof now. They kill our 6/6 here. We don't have Vigilance anymore, but then we're just going to use Winterhorn Blessing on the Phoenix. Lock it down for 2 turns. See if we can't find the win that way. Play with Fire Us for 2. They're going to find lethal here. Oh, I guess they get the Scry out of it. Since they can't target any of our cards anyway, then that's the plan there. No way! Flying, haste, and bring a creature back from the grave. Is that immediate lethal? Do they have a flyer in grave? No, they bring a Toxic Scorpion back tapped and attacking? So we can't block it well? I think we still win, but this is horrifying, right? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? It's 10. Oh my god, it's 10 if they have the +2/+2 trample spell. But I can't win. I can't win if they have that, because if I block, I lose Grove Strider, and then I don't have lethal next turn. I only have lethal next turn if I have both creatures out. So I have to just take it all and hope they don't have the combat trick too. Okay, we're at 2. Winterhorn Blessing for the win. Winterhorn Blessing, let's go. Oh my god. Another absolutely disgusting victory from a ridiculous bomb rare of ours there. But at least in that one, they had a Sunstreak Phoenix and an Olivia Crimson Bride. So they had their own nastiness going on. So 7-2, that is going to be a trophy draft. As many gems as possible have been earned there, all 2,500 as our prize for the day. Very good draft, very fun time with this ridiculous Simic ramp deck with 2 of the biggest bombs in the whole format, Hullbreaker Horror and Averbrook Caretaker. So there's one last look at the deck, but that is going to end today's video. As always, if you enjoy these drafts and you'd like to see more, just stick around on the channel. There will be plenty more in the near future. We have Garbage Andy's Trash Cube draft this Friday. We have the release of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty on February 10th. And in the meantime, we'll have more double feature drafts and Adventures in the Forgotten Realm quick drafts soon enough. So, forgot to mention there's also the Twitch channel in the link in the description below if you're interested in that. But other than that, as always, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.